Greetings.
Hello.
Greetings.
My greetings.
Well met.
I greet you.
Greetings, traveler.
Greetings, friend.
The pleasure is mine.
Wrong button. Hello, welcome to episode 189 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. Joining from a Gadget Stand, New York, it's me, Ridiculous Hat. From Karazhan, California, we have Botticus.
You're muted.
That was... Okay, so the rest of the podcast could hear, or the stream could hear me, but you couldn't. I clicked the wrong button.
Yeah, I was watching the stream to make sure the frames were okay, and you were just talking away.
Yeah, are the frames okay?
Yeah, it looks fine.
It's weird that I increased the bitrate to make it less laggy. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. Joining from Karazhan, California, we also have Botticus.
Hi.
From the Maelstrom, Louisiana, we have Appa.
Hola.
And we have you, the listener. We are supported entirely by you, listeners, so thank you so much for being here, whether it's live or recorded. If you'd like to find out how you can support us and receive rewards in return, head to patreon.com/CoinConcede. Big thanks to Pug Ugly for upping their pledge today. They were already a producer, but they're now like a better producer. Well, they're equally as good, but they're helping us out more.
They're now Giga Producer.
Yes.
Super producer?
No, that's a separate tier.
Producer?
We like you, Pug Ugly. We think you're good. The term
Yes.
doesn't matter. It's not
Seconded.
about words or labels. We like you. You're good. So thanks for being part of the patrons. For other people, if you're not sure if you want to be a patron,
Join the guild. We have cookies.
we have cookies. So,
We do have cookies in the food channel in the Discord.
we have the Final Refuge, who is a culinary student that just posts delicious food all the time. And so don't go in there if you're hungry, because it just gets real messy real quick. But if you're not hungry, it's fantastic. And you can also support us by leaving an iTunes review. Helps other people find the show. And we have quite a bit to talk about, because the last show we did was 9 days ago, which I guess is enough time for, 3 rounds of balance changes. Kind of insane.
What the hell is
Just
going
rapid
on?
fire balance.
I don't know.
It's like
I don't know.
All of us have been. I still just have been reeling from all of the information overload that's happened over the past couple days.
Yeah, I don't even remember what all the
actually
buffs
nuts.
are, but we'll get into that later. 'Cause
I'm
there's so many of them.
I'm overwhelmed. It's
Wait,
yeah.
Appa, you just said buffs. Hearthstone doesn't buff.
Okay,
cards.
before we skip all of our show structure, Appa, how's life in ladder?
It's good. I got sick today, so that sucks. But ladder's cool. Ladder's fun.
That's good.
I was playing, like I talked about on the last episode, I was playing Pirate, Tempo, Raiding Party Rogue, whatever the name for it was, because that deck is much less good now. And I queued up into a mage, and I had a hand that allowed me to play an 18-18 Edwin on turn 4, so I did it. I said, alright, don't have Voodoo Doll, please, because I had the coin. And then my opponent went Sorcerer's Apprentice, Magic Trick, Mana Cyclone, Magic Trick, Ray of Frost, Snap Freeze. And I was like, alright, that's it, you sold me. I'm crafting the second Mana Cyclone, and I'm sleeving up the deck. Let's go. Just handily crushed a turn 4 18-18 at one. And I was like, alright, I'm sold. You can make giants, you can do this nonsense, I'm down. And I've been playing a lot of it. It feels a lot of fun. It reminds me, a lot of the different mid-game plays remind me very much of how Cube Warlock used to feel, because you just make more giants and then your opponent dies, and then you also have like solid early game as well. It's fun. It's a good time. If you haven't played it yet, you should probably play it.
It feels to me like it almost feels like Lackey Rogue a little bit, except that it just sometimes just puts out these giant minions, whereas like Lackey Rogue's just doing a bunch of stuff. Like it has its turns where it just does a lot of stuff, where it gets like a lot of cards in hand. But this deck just like sometimes it just puts a giant in play and then conjures callings it. But it's like very different. But
I would wager to say that Cyclone Mage now does the most things per turn of any deck in Standard, probably, except for like Nomi Priest.
You
there's
said
just-
deck in
there's just-
standard, so Nomi Priest does not count because rip our friend Nomi Priest, because that deck loses really hard to, you guessed it, Cyclone Mage. Especially because some builds of Cyclone Mage play this card called Frost Nova, and you don't really want your Nomi turn to get Frost Nova'd. That's not good for you.
I got double Frost Nova today, and I was very upset.
That's cold.
Seven minion Frost Novas are the worst.
Yeah. Well, your opponent probably liked him. But yeah, I don't feel comfortable comparing this deck to any other deck because it feels so weird. The Cyclone turns do kind of feel like crazy Lyra turns. That those kind of remind me of that, except sometimes you do it on turn 3 and just draw a new hand. And then sometimes you play a Luna's Pocket Galaxy, and then sometimes the rest of the game just like, I don't know where this is going to go.
I think the only turns that feel straightforward with the deck are the turn 4 Mountain Giant turns. And then
Yes.
everything else is just like really hard to piece together because there's so many moving parts in the deck.
Turn 1 and 2 are usually pretty easy.
Yeah,
Pass.
Because it's usually pass and then ping.
Yeah.
It's very rare that you're going off on turn 2 with anything, but
And I also think this deck does not exist without Ray of Frost. That card holds the deck together in a really, really major way. It's a removal spell sometimes, but more often than not, it's just like a teeny little Frost Nova that also draws you 2 spells.
It's a glacial shard that copies itself and gets discounted by Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Yeah, it's a lot of things. It does a lot of things, and all of them are what the
sometimes
deck
it's a
wants to do.
Frost- Sometimes it's like a Frost Nova.
Yeah. Sometimes it's damage. Sometimes it's draw 2 cards. Sometimes it's all of them. Sometimes it's free off of Mana Cyclone. Then when you need the Cyclone into the Ray of Frost and you get there, it's
Then you get
frustrating
the
for the
snap
opponents.
freeze too to break the
Oh,
other
it's,
one.
the snap freeze being relevant is so strange. It's a very strange reality we live in. Botticus, what have you been playing? What have you been doing? How's your life in ladder?
Things are going well. I don't know if you remember, this was not too long ago, but we actually did a little co-op stream on Tuesday, which was a lot of fun.
I do remember that because for some reason, somehow, the Stone Tusk board deck is a real deck. It's a real thing. And like, not even real as in you play hunter cards and sometimes you win. No. We kill people from hand with Stone Tusk boars multiple sequential games on purpose as intended. We drew up the plan and that plan was good enough.
With it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went. So on that stream, I went 3-0 with Stone Tusk Boar Hunter and 4-1 with Carpet Rogue. Yeah, Carpet Rogue.
Yeah.
And so it was a good stream, and I've been kind of playing a little of both of that. I switched over my Rogue after the nerfs to remove prep. I already wasn't playing Raiding Party, but I ended up cutting the Magic Carpets as well for now, just for the Vendetta package. And that's going okay. It feels kind of rough to be Cyclone Mage sometimes because you end up playing a bunch of lackeys and evil miscreants, and then they play 1 mana, make a couple O2s with taunt, and that takes forever to chew through, and then they can kind of just set up behind it, and then Frost Nova your full board of lackeys and you die. But also I played a little bit of Murloc Shaman. I saw Zalay playing a version that had at least 1 Giggling Inventor, but he might have been playing 2. And basically the idea was kind of that you play a bunch of the battle cry minions, you play the new amalgam that makes a couple 1/1 Murlocs, well 1/1 amalgams, which are Murlocs, and then basically you kind of get to the point where they are constantly clearing your board, and you eventually just shutter walk, and it makes the 2 Giggling Inventor tokens, and it makes the 2 amalgam tokens, and then it buffs the amalgam tokens with the Murloc that buffs toughness. And like, I like the Giggling Inventor tokens because if you also played Hagatha that game, you kind of keep around the minions, which seems to be important for just kind of creating a sticky board, and that's been doing pretty well for me too. So Yeah. Other than that, almost finished Game of Thrones. Season 1. We're getting there. I got like 1 episode left of season 1, and then we can move on to the next one. Next one.
There are some twists and turns there. It's
Buckle up.
yeah. Yeah, there's that show has more twists than Blizzard has in the past week and a half, so be aware of that. As for me, I've been trying a little bit of everything. The majority of my Hearthstone time has been in Dalaran Heist, which is super fun, and I think is pretty easily the best single-player content they've released, and I intend to keep playing it. The anomaly mode, where you just get the random effect every run, has been cool. The one I had this most recent run, I took Shaman. It was, I got Murloc Shaman, and the effect was the Emperor Thorsan effect at the end of every turn. And then the first treasure I got was, at the start of the game, you get a random Death Knight hero power. Y'all ever cast 2 Every Fin is Awesomes in the same turn off the Rogue hero power?
I can safely say no, I have not.
Well, it is very powerful. Because all of my minions got +2/+2, and then +2/+2 again. I had multiples, and I also had, the Murloc quest, so fill the hand with Murlocs, discount them, next turn fill it up, in case the board is ever empty, which it wasn't. It was good. So I really like Dalaran Heist a lot. Really, really fun. On the ladder, I've been trying a little bit of everything. I tried some Mech Token Druid with Phlebidinous Floop, and that was actually what I played in my Specialist match against Beefsquatch, and if you thought that Giggling Inventor is still annoying, you're correct, and it is still good enough. And if you ever played a 4-mana 3/4 Microtech controller, also very good. The deck just never really runs out of gas, but that was only okay on ladder. And ladder is, I faced a lot of warriors and a control shaman today that was super annoying. So tried Zoo. I have not been able to make Zoo work since before the nerfs or after the nerfs, and I tried it again thinking it would be different this time, and it wasn't. It was exactly the same. And then I tried Hand Rogue, and thought I would beat Warrior, and my hand had multiple preps and backstabs, and I lost to Warrior, so I'm like, screw it, Oblivitron! And now I'm back to rank 1. So, Oblivitron Hunter, very, very good against Warrior, and also, the list I got from Kuonet, who won a Specialist qualifier, plays Double Pyromancer and Rapid Fire, so when my Druid opponent played Whispering Woods, there was they had a rude awakening when all of their stuff was dead. It was good. It's a good time. So, still in rank 1, gonna work on it. I will admit, and it's important to bring this up now, the bonus episode on Tuesday is going to be about the conflux of Hearthstone and Magic, because Arena got me. I'm in. It's a thing. So, I am playing both games, as I am known to do, and it's been good to dip my toe back in. It's made me appreciate a lot of what Hearthstone does, and really there's just a lot of different games to play and modes to play them right now, which is why I'm really happy with just the plethora of options. If I don't like ladder, I can go Heist. If I don't like Heist, I can go ladder. I can play Arena if I want to. I can play the other Arena, MTG Arena or Hearthstone Arena, and MTG Arena has like a bunch of game modes too. And if I want to turn my brain off, I play Momi or Vig, and if you're not sure what that is, well, we'll explain later on Tuesday's bonus episode about the 2 different things. There's a lot of stuff to do right now, and I think that Hearthstone's in a good spot. I'm enjoying it. And
I think it's actually in a great spot, and we have some pretty good reasons why it would be in a great spot coming up in the news section, which should be right about now.
He said, segueing like his life depended on it.
God damn it, Hat.
It was a good segue.
It was a good segue until you pointed out that I was segueing flawlessly into the news section. Anyway, so as you have heard, it's been 8 days since we last a whole bunch of well, one of them already happened, and it's some live card nerfs, or some card nerfs that went live. So we have Evil Miscreant is now, instead of a 1/5, it is a 1/4. Raiding Party has gone up to 4 mana, and Preparation has been reduced to 2 mana. So I don't know about you guys. I saw a person today that was just playing.
Prep is still 0 mana.
Oh,
Just
sorry.
reduces spells
Prep.
by 2.
Yeah, prep reduces. Preps got reduced to reducing the spells by 2.
That sentence could have
So-
been more elegant.
Yeah, probably. But,
Prep discounts
This
by
is what
1
happens
less.
if you
How
mess
about
up
that?
the segue. This is what
Yeah.
happens.
It wasn't messed up. I was going to edit out that part. Everything would have been fine. And the phrasing you're looking for is prep now discounts by 1 less mana. How about that?
Okay, fine, sure. Anyway, have you guys seen these cards? Oh wait, also Elysiana is now 9 mana up from 10, and I think we'll talk about this a bit in the
9 mana up from 10. Do you want to walk through that one again?
Botticus,
It's
please.
just all.
You threw 'em off.
gone. I need
It's off
it
the
needed to be
rhythm.
10. All right, it's 9 mana up from 8. It was 8. It is now 9.
Botticus be like,
These are... Yeah, exactly. These are all live. I've still played with Miscreant. It's still very good. I have
Yeah.
not tried to play with Raiding Party or Preparation because I don't really see a need to. I could still see Prep being fine, but I don't know. What have you guys seen on the ladder so far since this just went live yesterday? Right? Yeah, yesterday. Appa, have you seen any of these cards on ladder?
No, not personally. I haven't faced any of them. I played against random druid stuff. I played against a Luchtenbark druid earlier. Played against some hunter. What else have I played against? I think I
Mage.
played against mech priest, obviously mana cyclone mage. And then I think I played against a zoo. Yeah, zoo's kind of getting popular again. Yeah, I haven't seen Rogue personally played, but I know some people have just been changing up their draw package from the raiding parties and Myros, and they're just like putting back in Vendetta and the 4/3 pirate that burgles a card, and Blink Fox. They put in that package back, and then they play Gadgets and Auctioneer as their top end, and I mean that seems fine. Like Prep
Oh,
to
yeah.
me still seems really good.
Kreia was playing that list and actually was playing 2 copies of the card Pilfer, which is the 1 mana spell that burgles a card of your opponent's class. And we were talking about that as being a potential thing if you want Underbelly Fence to be good on turn 2. And specifically, Kreia called out, don't sleep on Pilfer, but also playing double Wanted, double Gadgetzan, so the downside of that card is way lower when it can potentially draw you a card in the middle of the game.
Yeah, in my version of the deck, I definitely have felt not having Raiding Party in to get Burglar for the Vendettas. It really feels much harder to turn on Vendetta than it had before. So that all makes a lot of sense. I've also seen a few lists that are playing the Underbelly Fence, the 2 mana 2/3 that becomes a 3/4. That's picking up a little bit in popularity in the lists that are going hard towards Vendetta.
Yeah, the list that I tried out, which was from one of the specialist qualifiers, was still a face style list, but you get to put Henge-Clan Thug back in the deck, which is still a good card. You don't have to worry about bouncing it anymore, and it's large. It's not as good as it was before they printed Mark Shot in particular, but it's still a very good card. And you get to play, I think the new hotness that I've seen the most of is Spirit of the Shark. That's been seeing a lot of play lately, and
I was seeing a lot of play before.
It was starting to pick up, and now I think it's pretty core in a lot of the decks I've seen. Really great with lackeys, good with SI, good with Togwaggle if you can stick it, but that's kind of a pipe dream. With Life Drinker, it's solid. So I'm not sure if that's where the deck's going to go.
Novice Engineer?
Yeah, if you're playing that. And I'm not sure that's where the deck is going to go.
Zole was playing a lot of Novice Engineer. I put it in my hand rogue deck, hand lackey rogue deck, and it's been very, very good.
Yep. And in Specialist, there's a player named Lisa that is in, I think they came in the finals of the tournament with a Spirit of the Shark rogue list with double Burglar, double Miscreant, double Blink Fox, double Cable Rat, double Novice Engineer, and double Mountain Giant. Because that's a card we should have in our rogue deck, so hand rogue might be a thing. And in Specialist, you get to have Sap in your secondary deck, and in the tertiary deck, they have the second Togwaggle scheme, and Barista Lynchin if you need
Oh yeah,
more
that card
power.
is sweet.
It's good.
I like that
That's a
card.
good card.
It is.
I wish
Have
it
you
got
ever
back the
gotten to
combo
play one
cards.
with a Spirit of the Shark in play?
Yes, I too have had hand space issues.
But anyway, so these are all live. We'll go into it a bit more in depth in the Dexplanation segment. But I think all of us were pretty happy with this coming out and felt like things might shape up a little bit in the meta. Some people were not, the word on the internet wasn't overly positive, but I think people were pretty happy with the changes in general. And it sounds like we've all played against less warriors and rogues, which I think is probably good, just for the overall health of the meta. But then the next day, this giant post came out that I don't think a single person in the Hearthstone community could have predicted. We got card buffs coming. That's right, they are going to make Hearthstone cards better for the first time pretty much ever, unless you count the reverting the Molten Giant change, but
Or beta.
Or beta. So the first part of the announcement says that they are going to add a new legendary mech to everybody's collection called Snip Snap, or SM1P SN4P. It is a 3-mana mech with Magnetic Rush and an Echo, right? And then Death Rattle, summon 2 1/1 mechs. I should have just had this pulled up. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, it's just magnetic Echo, and then Death Rattle, summon 2 1/1 microbots, and it's a 3-mana 2/3 mech. So everybody's going to get this as long as you log in between June 3rd and July 1st. And then there's just a whole list of cards. Basically, 2 cards from every class is getting an update to them. Whether a lot of them are mana cost, some of them are health and toughness changes. I mean, mostly mana cost. How much mana increases can affect the playability of a card. What was going through your guys' head when you saw this announcement? I saw you tweet a bit. Both of you tweeted on Twitter a little bit, but what was your initial reaction to this?
My initial reaction, Botticus.
Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap.
That was my initial reaction. Also, initial reaction was, what the heck? Oh, that's still isn't it? My initial reaction was, what the heck? Because I don't know how to really express how out of left field this is. Anyone that's been a longtime player of the game understands there's been call since, I think, I started really playing and being tuned into the ecosystem right around Blackrock Mountain in the Grand Tournament. And the hype at the time was Grim Patron. And that was when Team 5 had the development philosophy of, we want your cards to feel like physical cards. We don't really want to reach out and change them. That destabilizes faith in the cards as a collectible, as a thing you can own. And when they did make a change around that time, a few months after, to Warsong Commander, they kept it as a 3-mana 2/3 because of the soul of the card, was the meme at the time, which they've moved away from saying specifically because of the meme. But they changed the effect from your minions that cost 2 or less, or minions with 2 power or less have charge, to your minions with charge have +1 attack, which is about as different as it could be. And there was a lot of contention about Blizzard not really understanding how a digital card game could work versus a physical one, about the different paradigm, about how cards could be adjusted more actively, about how the other Blizzard games, Heroes of the Storm, saw a lot of updates on a regular basis with extensive tuning. Same with I think Overwatch wasn't really a thing yet, but right around whatever games that Blizzard was supporting at the time, we're seeing regular changes, and Hearthstone was very different. And we look at where we're at now, and we've had in Rosticon's Rumble, we had 2 rounds of nerfs, one with 24 hours notice to Sacred Cows, classic cards. In the past 2 months, we've had Hall of Fame cards. We've had a round of nerfs, and then an announcement of buffs, and then another nerf to the buffs. It's indicative of a different philosophy in the Blizzard environment, and I think it's a wonderful thing. Even though I don't know if these are the best buffs, the great thing is they're willing to change cards. So it doesn't matter if these are right, what matters is that they think this is the right thing to do. And the process is way more important than the result, because the results can always be changed. So, I think this is
Or
great.
They at least think it's worth trying.
Yes.
Because they can try out all these cards, see what happens, and if it goes over really well, then maybe they do it again. And if it goes over really poorly, then they don't have to do it again.
Yeah. So, I don't know if these particular buffs will be the most important ones. I have thoughts about them specifically. We'll get into the explanations. The fact they're doing buffs at all is fantastic. Wonderful. Great. Amazing. Keep doing it. Please. And I've seen some people actually express concern that why are you buffing Boomsday? It's already the best set of the 3. And my question is, if all of these cards are leaving Standard at the same time, who cares? Blizzard just giving you one particular set to buy packs of, and they really don't want people buying Witchwood right now, because the best legendaries in those sets, you can't get them in those sets right now. If you're buying Witchwood, it's for Gen and Baku for Wild, and you can't open Gen and Baku and Witchwood packs right now until Witchwood rotates out and the cards are removed from the Hall of Fame and put back in the Witchwood. So they don't want people buying that right now. Rosticon's Rumble, I think, ultimately was kind of an underwhelming set, so if they're encouraging people to buy cards that leave Standard at the same time, and they give them one specific set to target, I think that is more consumer-friendly than spreading the buffs over multiple events. Plus, they can make this the mech-themed thing, Dr. Boom's mech event thing, whatever it's called. And you'd rather have them change cards that are on the cusp of playability, as opposed to really shove cards that are not, because when you really shove a card, you don't know where it's going to land, but when you tweak one number on cards that are close, you're much more likely to get there.
All right, Atha. What did you think? What was your reaction when you saw this post?
I think my exact reaction was what I tweeted out, and I said, "What is happening?" Because what is happening? This is completely unprecedented, and I've given a good bit of thought to this, and I wouldn't be surprised if, like, in the boardroom where they make all the decisions, if some conversation came about where it was part of the Grandmaster League being a little stale, because it's Warrior Mirrors almost exclusively, pre-nerfs and pre-buffs, or and some combination of that plus Magic Arena's slowly becoming more of an actual competition, and it's not going the way of Artifact. And one of the benefits of a purely digital space like Hearthstone compared to a game like Magic is that they can just change cards. In Magic, you can't actually really change cards because you have the physical copies that people have bought. All you can really do there is ban cards if they're too strong. Like, I've been playing a lot of Magic lately, and there's some cards there that I'm just like, these seem a little too good. I wish they could just, like, change a number on this and just tweak it a little bit, because it's real close, but it's a little too strong. And it's really good for Magic to realize, or for Hearthstone to realize that this is a major leg up that they have on the competition, especially Magic Arena, because they can just tinker around with numbers and just change stuff. And if some of this stuff ends up being too strong, like there's some cards in here that are not really concerning, but it's just like, this one was already good, might be a little too good now. They can just change the number back. They can just move the dial up and down, and that's such a great unexplored space that they've had in Hearthstone. They've been so reluctant to make changes in the past, so it's really nice to see them either realizing that they should be doing this, or knowing that they should have been doing this for a while and finally acting on it. So I'm really excited about this direction that the game is going, because I've felt for quite some time that it has felt like they've been a little too reluctant to make changes. But I'm really excited for these.
You just wait, Appa. Pretty soon, our Magic the Gathering booster packs are going to come with little strips of whiteout. And then whenever they want to change a card on Magic Arena, you just stick a little bit of whiteout on your physical card and write in the number they want to change it to. But yeah, I was super excited about this. I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts in the decksplanation segment about each of these cards individually, because there's just so many. I have so many thoughts about so many cards. The last little news item on this post is that the new arena season is also going to be going live on June 3rd. So the arena sets that they're using to determine the cards that you will pick are changing. So the new sets that will be a part of arena are going to be classic, basic, GVG, TGT, Karazhan, Boomsday, and Rise of Shadows. So a little bit of you got a chance to play with the arena sets that are currently there, and maybe it'll be a bit different. All of these new coming in, and then so we got a set of nerfs, and then we got our set of buffs, and then when we saw the set of buffs and we saw the new card Snip Snap, it was pointed out that there's a little bit of a combo you can do with Snip Snap. Well, at least you could have done, had this gone live as it was said it was supposed to, with Coppertail Imposter, I believe, the 4-mana 4/4 that when it enters the battlefield it gets stealth. And then next turn you can play Reckless Experimenter, which makes your Snip Snap cost 0 mana, and you can just magnetize it as many times as you want before the rope burns to deal enough damage to kill your opponent. A lot of people were wondering if this was a thing you could do, and all I could think was, yeah, I did this as soon as Glinda Crowskin and Magnetic were allowed in Wild. I tried to go with Mech Warper, because you can do this with Mech Warper in Wild. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. So they are changing Reckless Experimenter to read reduces the cost of death rattles by 3 mana, cannot reduce them below 1. So you will no longer be able to do the full combo there, because it's at minimum going to cost 1. So I mean, this hasn't even gone to live servers yet, and they were worried enough about this to do it. What do you guys think about this?
I said in the behind the scenes room in the Discord, I was like, it's like watching a child grow up, and Hat said it's like watching your dog not pee on the floor anymore, learning to use the bathroom outside. And it's really great that they just bit the bullet on this one. We're like, okay, we didn't see this interaction, we messed up, because it's not just that you need exactly those 3 cards in that order, because like the dream scenario is Coppertail Imposter, turn 5 Experimenter, Snip Snap you, and then you die. But it's the fact that any mech that lived for the rest of the game threatened an OTK that you couldn't deal with, because Priest is the class that runs 0 mana silence and Mass Dispel, so you could just jam all these cards in attack, and then if any of your mechs live, like even if it's just a 1/1 mech that comes out of a random other mech, it threatens a lethal combo, which is a bit much. And I'm really glad that Twitter found this, and it became a very popular post. And I'm really, really glad that Hearthstone made this change before it hit live servers, because it was either not consistent enough or way too good. There was like no middle ground there, and it's just really exciting to see this just completely drastic shift in terms of balance that we've just never seen before. Like we get nerfs, which we expect, and then we get card buffs, which have never happened before in terms of being out of beta, and then we get a card nerfed before a new card that interacts with it favorably even hits live servers. So it's really good to see them just moving in, I think, a very positive direction for design.
this would have
Do you
been
agree, Hat?
bad. This would have been real bad. Because it's
What do you mean?
not.
Okay, bad as in actually bad, or bad as you think it was actually good?
It would have
I
been
think
an
this would have
unhealthy
been-
play pattern.
Okay,
a
I think
deeply
this would have
unhealthy play
been
pattern.
a bad deck, but I agree with them nerfing it still.
So
Just having played the like that before in Wild, and obviously very different, but like I was playing a very similar thing in a Warlock deck that gets to draw through the majority of its deck, and Priest doesn't have a lot of draw, and you have to have this card specifically, as well as one of your 2 Reckless Experimenters. And like, yes, you can add more mechs to it. My deck probably wasn't optimized, but I don't know that this would have been a game-breaking combo, but I'm still okay with them coming out with this nerf before, because I think that if it had been too good, then obviously that's bad.
Priest
But
is the
I
deck
don't
that
think it
plays
would've.
Chef Nomi on turn 9, right? It's that deck. Like you
You think-
can construct Priest to have a lot of draw. I think the minion heavy shell probably isn't that great. Dead Ringer is a really good card because it is a mech and it gets you specifically Snip Snap or the other Dead Ringer. But the point here isn't that the deck would have been good, and I am a big fan of combo existing in metagames, period. Because when combo doesn't exist, you get metagames not dissimilar from what we have right now, where the best decks are control and mid-range, and the games get super grindy, and that's kind of what we saw when Deathstalker Rexar was the best card in the format, and there wasn't really a lot of decks that preyed on that outside of Xerix Priest. Not that meta was particularly healthy, but the combo does need to exist. I think the play pattern of my opponent, anytime after turn 4, I can't let a mech live because I might just be dead. I don't think that's healthy. Now, would it have worked most of the time? Probably not. Are there ways to make it more consistent? Yes, more consistent at finding the combo, but probably less consistent at sticking the combo. But I'm glad that this wasn't something that we needed to work on, because once this hit live, once this hit the servers, the 2 options are either you iterate this deck or you iterate decks with this in mind. Even if it's bad, it's format warping. And I think that's what happened with the first iteration of Quest Rogue, where it wasn't above a 50% win rate, but it was absolutely format warping. So I don't mind there being combo, but I like my combo decks being a little bit worse than this, or at least a little bit less of a little bit less swingy than this. I'm glad they did something, even though I would, in some world, like to see the metagame that resulted if this hit live, but I'm glad they didn't let it.
It would have been like Patron, except way less hard to execute, because you just stick 3 cards together and your opponent dies.
But not Patron, because Patron was also filled with card draw engines that were really efficient and powerful, and a bunch of board control tools. I think I would probably compare it to, I don't know, maybe it would be more like an early Xerix. Maybe you could take the Nomi pre-shell and replace it with this combo instead, because instead of making 42 power, you kill your opponent, which is generally better. And if you just stick the 4/4, the Coppertail Imposter, Dinomatic doesn't kill it. And they play a bunch of silences and topsy-turvies and Lazul schemes and whatever. I think the Gadgetzan shell would actually be way better, because your kill is just more reliable. And you can play Nomi anyways. You can still play Nomi. You just put 3 cards in your Nomi Priest deck and all of a sudden you're better.
I'll admit I totally forgot about Dead Ringer. Yeah, this might have actually been super broken.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I forgot.
Dead Ringer.
That's a very specific one. That's real good.
So it's a 2-mana 2/1 mech that when it dies, it draws you a Death Rattle card from your deck. And
Yeah.
when the other cards are the other Dead Ringer and Snip Snap, very easy to find. I think that there was probably enough here that it was better that we didn't experience it and wait for the hotfix. And also, in the world where Grandmaster is broadcasting tournaments every week, this being on your stream is taking your league out back and shooting it. Do not do that to your league. There is no way that
GM's
you
going
want.
the way of Old Yeller. If this one
You
gets-
do not want
gets
this
live.
mirror being on stream. We tried this one once with Patron Warrior mirrors. And when you see a Control Warrior at 50 kill their own minion and not play anything else and then die anyway, that's not good to watch. You don't want this on your stream. That would not happen.
Yep. But so yeah, I think overall really really positive. Just a lot of really good things coming out from Hearthstone. We had a really good news section last week where we talked about the changes to the Masters system, and then this week we're talking about card nerfs and card buffs. And yeah, just overall really really happy with where the direction Hearthstone seems to be going recently. The last news item I added on here is there will be a Mechanical Invitational where they are inviting a bunch of players from the North America region, South Korea, Russia, and Europe to play in kind of it's a very interesting kind of format. So basically the players are going to be getting 20 classic card packs, 20 Witchwood packs, 20 Boomsday, 20 Rasticons, and 40 Rise of Shadows card packs, as well as 5,000 gold. And they're going to be building decks to compete against each other. Where and like they have all kinds of systems. We have a link in the show notes to a little more information about this, but you can like over the course of this event, you can win pack, or you can if you get points, you can force your opponents to disenchant cards from their deck and replace those cards. There's a whole lot of cool stuff going on here. We have a few of the players announced already. It looks like we're still waiting for the announcement for the North America and Russia and Belarus. Belarus. Yeah, Belarus region.
Belarus. I'm editing out you
Belarus.
not knowing Belarus.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Lost Head is from there, I think. No, the Ukraine. Doesn't matter. Keep going.
Okay. So, looks. I mean, this reminds me of a tournament that Frodan put on. I believe it was Frodan and Tempo Storm put on.
Are you you're not thinking of Archon? Are you? Oh, a few months ago. Okay. No, I was thinking way back in like the Archon tournaments. The Amaz tournaments were also kind of funky like this. But yeah, Tempo Storm has done sealed a couple times.
Yeah, so this is kind of similar to that, and Frodan's actually going to be one of the commentators alongside Heatwave. But yeah, this the card packs are all going to be opened on June 3rd, and then play is going to start on June 4th. So, yeah, this is pretty cool tournament. I mean, I think if I had to predict what Hat's going to say, I wish we had an option to do something similar to like this on live servers, because that would be an extra game mode. And extra game modes are good.
I wasn't going to say that, but I would like to have that. No, what I'm going to say is the invitational tournaments I have tremendously enjoyed, and I think a large part of that is the South Korean team, because this team is largely complete each time that they come to the invitational. And in particular, my man Ridger wins. You might recognize him from every single game to watch that he's ever played in. This man brought Quest Warlock to multiple sequential invitationals. And he is my hero. And I will be watching and rooting for South Korea, because Ridger wins and Didahoni and Suni are just wonderful players that do crazy things. But from Europe, we already have Tars announced. And if you don't know who Tars is, this is the inventor of Big Priest. But back then it was a meme, in Standard, because it played Forbidden Shaping, the 0-mana spell that you spend all your mana crystals and you get back a random minion of that cost. It was a lot more fun back then because it seemed like a joke, and then, as you know from jokes, when you keep hearing them, they become less funny. And wild players, I'm sure, will agree with us. But
I feel like he also was one of the first players to play Keleseth Rogue.
Yes, and one of the first players to play Yogg-Saron.
And Keleseth Rogue got real popular.
And also the card Yogg-Saron, as you may know, was quite popular as well. Tars is ahead of the curve, and he is a great player with crazy ideas. So the deck building out of Sealed is usually not this kind of distribution, because the number of packs they have, I want to make sure I'm clear here. They have all of the buffed cards, right? They have 37 buffed cards. Plus, they have 160 packs and 5,000 gold to buy 50 more packs. This is near constructed level. They're going to be able to build almost constructed decks, but with restrictions based on some variants. But this is a lot of packs. Now, no dusting, I don't think. I don't think they can disenchant the extra cards and craft more stuff. I believe it has to be the cards that they actually open. So there's going to be a couple cards here or there that are missing, and they'll have to work around that, but there's a lot of packs that they'll be playing with, and they will be showcasing for sure the new buffed cards. So I'm really curious to see what they do, and I think this is meant to simulate a lot of free-to-play grinders experiences.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a cool tournament. I definitely want to tune in. It's about a little over a week away, so I'll be excited to tune into a bit of this as I'm probably grinding my own games with a bunch of new cards. Oppa, is this a cool? You like this tournament that they have going on here?
Yeah, it seems cool. I'm excited to watch. I like weird formats with like restrictions. I like invitationals that are kind of like this. I feel like it's been a while since we've had one of these.
Yeah, so that'll be happening in just over a week, and that's pretty much all we had for the news. Because I mean, we really want to talk about these card buffs. So we'll get into tournaments, and shortly after, some decksplanations.
It's the grand tournament!
And tournaments, we have kind of quite a few, actually. There's been a bunch that's been going on both pre-nerf and post-nerf. So, we had 3 tournaments that we can talk about here. The Soul qualifiers are constantly ongoing. The first week of Grandmasters is in the books. And Dreamhack Tours, not quite a Grand Prix like we're used to. There wasn't the video coverage, but there was a specialist tournament there for 128 people, 93 entered, and there was a €2,400 prize to first place, so hey, it's not quite a Grand Prix, but it's something. It was not well advertised. I had to dig really hard to find information about it, but there was a tournament there. Trek took it down. He beat it over Chathon in the double limb final. He actually lost the first match of the grand finals, but he was coming from the winner's bracket, so he won the second one and took down the tournament. And GM Week 1, it's all round robin right now, so things. I'll pull them up right now. And yeah, as is being said in the chat right now, I agree, Hockey. I only found out about the tournament because the winner tweeted that they won, so it was not particularly well advertised. But as far as standings in the Grandmasters tournament go, for Week 1, we have, looks like Eddie, Strifecrow, and Frozen are in the top places in Division A. Monsanto, Zalay, and ETC in Division B. For Europe, we have Fino, Tice, Colento, Casey, Psycho, and Orange are doing well. And then for APAC, Flurry, Frosty, Rivius, Dawn, Shaxi, and Glory are doing well. And Week 2 is ongoing as we speak. Now, the metagame in Grandmasters Week 1, remember this was before the nerfs. And it was what you expected, and kind of a testament to why they nerfed. There were 24 warriors, 12 rogues, 8 mages, 3 hunters, and a single priest. Bomb Warrior was by far the most popular warrior, Miracle Mage was by far the most popular mage, and at the time, Tempo Face Rogue was the best rogue. Performance-wise, Miracle Mage was where you wanted to be. 6 players playing it, 71% win rate overall, 20-8 was the total record over non-mirror matches. Control Warrior had a very small sample size, that was second in win rate. Tempo Rogue was just over 50% by a hair, everything else was under 50%. And Nomi Priest win rate was 0%. RIP. Don't play Nomi Priest in Grandmasters.
Didn't only Pavel bring it?
Yep, and he went 0-4. Yeah, you don't want to do that. Now, remember that was pre-nerf. Post-nerf, every single class has representation except Priest. I guess Pavel learned his lesson. Mage leads the way, 25 mages. Warrior has 8 Hunter has 6, Paladin has 3, 2 Druids, 2 Rogues, 1 Shaman, and 1 Warlock. No results yet. Keep an eye out. Week 2 is going as we speak. As far as Soul, we have post-nerf information. And Hunter, Mage, and Warrior are the classes to play right now in Specialist. So, 3 Mid-Hunters have 1, 2 Bomb Warriors, 1 Miracle Mage, and 1 Death Rattle Mech Hunter with Oblivitron. In general, if you're looking at the Swiss, 1 in 5 decks in your qualifier are mid-range Hunter. 1 in 5, about 19%. Slightly below that is Bomb Warrior and Miracle Mage, both just under 15%. Both have quite a few top 8 entries and wins between them. And the only other winning archetype is that Death Rattle Mech Hunter, which has very low representation but did well in the hands of Kuonet. Murloc Shaman, Holy Wrath Paladin, Zoo, and Token Druid have a good bit of top 8 representation, as well as Bomb Hunter. None of them have converted wins. Burgle Tempo Rogue and Miracle Rogue are actually doing okay, but again, no wins. For top 8 frequency, got Mid-Range Hunter, Bomb Warrior, and Miracle Mage in that order. Bomb Hunter's number 4 in that order. Now note that Bomb Hunter has made the top 8 6 times. In top 8, it has won 14% of its matches. 14%. The conversion rate in the top 8 is truly terrible for Bomb Hunter, even though it's actually had a decent representation in making the top 8s. But it hasn't been able to go the distance, and in fact has actively looked terrible in elimination rounds. Zoo, Warlock, and Big Shaman have a small top 8 representation, no wins, but a high win rate. So, what should you play right now? Well, Mid-Hunter seems to be the way to go in terms of qualifiers. If you're very practiced with Miracle Mage, you can do that as well. And Bomb Warrior is pretty decent. Any of those 3 are the decks to recommend. There are other decks that might have opportunity to do well, but we haven't really seen them take home any trophies or get any invites. Now, as far as games to watch, we do have a few. And in particular, the Bunny Hopper versus Pheno series in Week 1 of the Grandmasters. It was kind of fun. Game 1 is kind of a typical Miracle Mage versus Bomb Warrior play for the Mage. Pheno is playing Sandbinder, which makes the deck a lot more consistent. It draws either Mountain Giant or a Mana Cyclone. So, Giant on 4, after the turn 3 Sandbinder gets killed by Militia Commander, everything gets traded in with a Wrench Caliber. Harrison takes care of the Wrench Caliber, trades back and forth. The second Mountain Giant happens, turns into a Grave Horror, and just this perpetual pressure continues, and he goes down to 3 life on turn 7 or so, and a counterspell goes up thanks to the Mana Cyclone, and that's all she wrote. In Game 2, it's definitely more of a Warrior-typical game, especially post-sideboard, post-deck selection. Pheno's trying to set up for a Lunaturn early, has Apprentice, Ray of Frost, Mirror Image, but then Bunny Hopper's able to get down Augmented Elec early, and a second one, and that gets pretty scary, because you don't want that many bombs in your deck, especially when you're planning on drawing through most of it. And the card that really performs post-sideboard for Bunny Hopper is Super Collider, which we're starting to see in a lot more ladderlists, specifically designed to beat Mage. Because if you Conjurer's Calling, and a Super Collider comes down, then the big minions die, and that's not good for you. So, Blastmaster Boom with 4 bombs, pretty powerful stuff, and Big Game Hunter is in Bunny Hopper's deck. That's also very, very good against what Pheno is trying to do. So, keeps the board clear, gets pressure going, and that's enough. Now, Game 3 is the goofy one. This is the one I would recommend watching. Pheno has Mountain Giant and Harrison in the opener. Sets it up for a turn 4 Magic Trick into Coin AI into an 8/8 Mountain Giant that's facing down a 3/3, a 1/1, and a Tempo Omega Devastator. But then that Big Game Hunter comes down and just eats it. But then next turn, Sorcerer's Apprentice, Mirror Image, Sea Giant, and Ray of Frost the 4/5. That takes a couple cards to deal with. Board is clear on turn 7. Astromancer comes down for Pheno, gets a 3/6. Super Collider starts to eat stuff. A bunch of bombs get traded in. Harrison eats the Super Collider. The Conjurer's Calling, and that gets a Vile Brood Skitterer. You might remember that from Rexar days. 5 mana, 1/3 rush that kills minions. And Conjurer's Calling on the next turn. Mountain Giant. 7/8 comes to the rescue. Pheno is down to 13 with 3 bombs in his deck, so you know that feeling. We're in full-on clench mode. We're clenching it. But that 7/8 Grave Horror defends. Thank goodness. And Stargazer Luna comes down the following turn. with Conjurer's Calling. Second Calling makes the board full of pressure. Second Super Collider comes down. Both 7/8s die thanks to Eternium Rover. Fino has to mana Cyclone for 1. Gets a counterspell into a Cyclone for 2. Now, Omega Devastator is pretty nuts. Khadgar into Power of Creation is a swingback. 4 6/5 taunts. They all get cleared the following turn. Bunny Hopper's down to 19. Fino's at 9 with quite a few bombs in his deck. Fino goes Banana Buffoon, Astromancer, and gets a Core Hound. Dr. Boom is the next top deck. But I might not have mentioned, the last card off that Mana Cyclone for 2 was Arcane Missiles. Core Hound, Astromancer, Banana Buffoon, double banana, Arcane Missiles, ping, exactly lethal. And Fino takes down a very unlikely game with 5 cards left in his deck, and 2 of them were bombs. If both were drawn, they were lethal. Fun game to watch. Really shows the push and pull between Mage and Warrior. Would recommend checking it out. And this week will be a lot more interesting as well. It already has been because there aren't a lot of quote-unquote resident sleeper mirrors. More Masters qualifiers are ongoing. The Concede Not a League listener series is ongoing. That's also fun. We'll be doing another one that is not Specialist after this one as well. So those of you that want not Specialist, get ready. And it's time for decksplanations, and we have some stuff to talk about. Changes. We've already touched on them, but there's more to dig into. Let's go.
So Rogue got hit pretty hard with the Nerf bat. So we're going to go through all of these recent changes that have come in the last week. I'm still reeling from that it was like less than 7 days that all these happened. Yeah, I mean, like we talked about before, Prep now reduces a spell by 2. It's still 0 mana, reduces it by 2 instead of 3. So it's now just an innerbait for spells. Evil Miscreants, still the same mana cost, now it's just a 1/4, and Raiding Party now costs 4. So the Pirate Rogue deck specifically got hit really hard because the play patterns of playing early preps into raiding parties and doing that on 3 plus a miscreant was like a frequent turn that you would have if you had all the cards, and then next turn would just be Waggle Pick to follow up, and then you just get a really gross snowball of value and tempo on the board. But now that that's lost a lot of its power, people have started to switch away from the Pirate Rogue decks and move to the Miracle Rogue and Hand Rogue versions. So I think it's going to take some time to really figure out where Rogue wants to end up. But I definitely think it still wants to play Prep, because I mean, traditionally with Prep, you either like prepped Fan of Knives or you played Prep Sap or Prep Abyss, which you can still do. Like the Fan of Knives is worse, but that one's, I think, a lot less important than the Sap and Abyss turns. So I would be surprised if the best like Rogue variations aren't some iteration of like Vendetta, Backstab, Prep, and Auctioneer all together, because the Vendetta gets reduced to 0 mana whenever you burgle a spell, and it can just make those turns go off, and then you just find a win condition from there, like whether it be like a Hand Mage or a Hand Rogue variation, or maybe just even like traditional Leroy with like Henge Clan Thugs and stuff like that. What do y'all think? I know y'all have seen some like Rogue lists, but where do you think the class is going to end up, say like two weeks from now?
I feel like it largely depends on what we're seeing. I think the Vendetta pack is good if you're seeing a lot of the more aggressive decks. So if you're seeing a lot of Hunter and maybe Zoo Warlock, Murloc Shaman, I think that it fights those decks pretty well. But if we're seeing a bit more of the Handmaid or the the small spell mage and warrior, if those are picking up, I think Hand Rogue is in a much better spot against those decks. So it kind of just depends on where the format's going, I think. Yeah, I think the Prep is a card that could see play, could not see play. I think it could go in and out depending on your build. If you're going for the gadget the auctioneer build, then obviously you're going to want prep. But if you're going for kind of the hand rogue build, maybe that one doesn't play as many spells, so it's not as useful. Miscreant still feels completely fine to me. I think that card's still quite good, and it just, the break points line up a lot better for it when you're playing against it. So I like this nerf specifically. And then Raiding Party feels unplayable to me. I don't think you can spend 4 mana for a card like that. It's just too slow. So I wouldn't touch Raiding Party anymore. But the other two I think are still kind of worth keeping. But if you're not playing Rogue, then you can disenchant them and then just recraft them if you decide to play it later.
So I wouldn't say that Raiding Party is unplayable. I would say that I haven't played it and I haven't seen anyone else play it. So it's not seeing play. There's no data on it, and I
played against it. It was really bad.
Okay, yeah. I don't have interest in being the person that gathers that data. I do expect prep to still see heavy play. I agree that it's a decision point now, where before it was the decision point was, do I play prep or do I play a different class? But now I think prep should probably still be in your rogue decks. And there have been so many times where I just played prep to turn on combo and didn't even play a spell. You still can do that. Edwin's still a card. And Evil Miscreant, my theory at this point, the way I've been explaining it, it's not that it was nerfed. It's that when someone was coding the card into the client, they made a typo when they typed in the health. It just was the wrong number. Just like, no, let's just put it back to the card we designed it. We designed it as a 1/4. And it's just fixed now. It's still really strong.
The 5.
It's still really strong. It's just not... It makes some sense in some world, as opposed to a 3 mana 1/5 where it's like, well, the breakpoint of the entire format is 4 health. Shouldn't this be a 1/4? I guess so, but it says 5 on the card. Yeah. I don't know. And yes, Appa...
So what you're saying is that Hat wants to keep prep in his decks, and Bot wants to get rid of it. This is just a theme throughout nerfs, throughout buffs. We're still the same podcast.
I'm just saying, how many times have you played prep for either sap, eviscerate, or just played it to activate combo? It's a lot. Probably half the time or more. I'm gonna keep doing that. Still good.
Recently, I have not done that.
No, recently you've drawn 3 cards.
Well, also recently I haven't been playing prep, or I haven't been playing sap, or
he's also playing like Tacnog.
Okay,
that
that is
card
not data. That we are not putting
that
Magic
got
Carpet
cut.
Rogue data to influence whether prep is a good card or not. That's not how that happens.
I cut out Magic Carpet too.
So what does the deck do? What is it? Are you just playing Rogue?
Yeah, just no saps, no eviscerates, no preps.
So what's in your deck? What do you have? What do you do?
Evil Miscreants and King Togwaggle.
Okay,
and
that's 3
Life
cards.
Life Drinkers and Spirit of the Shark. Like, what? You don't need any other cards. You just... Those are the cards in the deck. You draw to those cards, and then your opponent dies.
They'd die faster if you were prepared.
Alright, so I feel like we've talked about Rogue enough. Let's move on to, I think, the first buff discussion.
Wait, did you forget the other nerf? Archivist Elysiana?
Elysiana got
Seems
nerfed
important.
to 9 mana. Yeah, I just forgot to put that one down. Yeah, so they nerfed this one specifically to reduce the consistency of Elysiana Baleful Banker and Elysiana Youthful Brewmaster in Specialist. And I mean, even in Ladder, some decks would still play Elysiana plus a Banker or Elysiana plus a Brewmaster. But in Specialist, the mirror frequently came down to tempo and what cards you got off Elysiana. And that was really unhealthy in terms of round time, because rounds frequently took 2+ hours, and it was crazy. So it's nice to see them move away from that. I know I saw Tic Tac's deck that he posted on Twitter, where he has Geppetto Joybuzz and double Baleful Bankers and Archivist Elysiana just still in the deck. So sometimes you just Geppetto and high roll that anyways. And then the meme was, whenever they announced this, like I talked about, I think 2 episodes ago or something, about the coin, where if you're on the coin and you're running one of these, technically you can still go Archivist Elysiana for 9, coin, have 2 mana, and then banker it into your deck. So the meme, at least on Twitter, was whoever has coin just wins. But it's probably pretty unlikely that we see that realistically happen, because Bomb Warrior, if you were watching the Grandmasters League, the mirrors, and there's a lot of data on this. Frequently, it came down to tempo being more important than the Elysiana turns. Like sometimes the Elysiana would matter, but a lot of the time was who was able to like play their Elysiana first or get tempo going into the Elysiana turn to punish their opponent and then snowball from there. So I really doubt that this will be an issue with the coin plus the bounce effect. But I mean, if traditional control warriors just playing Geppetto, Joybuzz, and Baleful Bankers and Elysiana, we might still be stuck with it. But that's that remains to be seen, I would say.
Why didn't they just make it 10? It's really not that appreciably difference between 9 and 10. They could have just not had any of this nonsense. Well, they could have still had the Geppetto Joybuzz nonsense, but they could have just not had the coin ever be something you would factor in or think about when it came to this card, and it would have been fine. I just don't understand why they made it 9 and not just make it 10. It's
Okay.
when are you ever playing this card before you have 10 mana crystals? Almost never. So it just doesn't make sense to me why it's not.
Okay. So here's the thing. The Hearthstone Balance team's goal is to have the maximum number of decisions when you build your deck. And Elysiana is still playable, nowhere near as good or as reliable or as logistically impacting, but still playable. But you look at the list now, people are trying out Joybuzz, Azalina, and Mechanoon as reliable other options in control mirrors, or just not playing any of them in the primary deck. And Elysiana is fine, but not as reliable, and sometimes there will be those games where you keep the coin, but other times there will be those games where your opponent Azalina's your hand with the coin and the bouncer, and other times where tempo matters way more. And the first Elysiana mattered a lot because you were less likely to get spells off it, so most likely your minions were just bumping into other minions, so you wouldn't have the first one. But really, what I think the point of nerfs is to adjust perception, not adjust reality. Because no meta is ever truly solved, it's just people play the things that they think are the best, and those get iterated the most and streamlined the most, and there's not enough data for challengers, except for rare cases, to really make a dent. So Blizzard, by nerfing Elysiana to 9 instead of 8, the card was already probably on the verge of being the best option, but maybe not consistently. And by adjusting the cost by 1, it's still an option, but they've dramatically impacted perception. So people are trying other things that may have been better the whole time anyway. Because none of the Mechanoon combo stuff got changed. You could have played that the whole time. It probably was better most of the time. But people weren't playing it, so now they are. It's interesting that this is still an option, and there's kind of this weird arms race of which thing do you do in the Warrior Mirror? Because Elysiana beats just bombs, and Azalina beats just Elysiana. And Azalina and Mechanoon kind of have a weird push and pull with each other. And Elysiana probably probably loses to Mechanoon as well. So it's a choice that can be made in very specific scenarios that may have applications, like Dr. Boom Scheme. And I can hear you rolling your eyes. I can hear it.
So, but before we get into the eye roll, I actually really like that Mechanoon Warrior is a thing. Usually, I'm not the biggest fan of like I win combos. Like whenever you hit a specific turn, like you're usually on a timer against decks like this, where it's like, can you kill them by X turn? If not, you've lost, and you don't really have anything to do about that. But the thing I like about Mechanoon Warrior right now is it's still really solid. Like you still have all the good control tools. Like you have Doctor Boom, you have all the really good mechs, you have all the good removal, the AoE. But the thing with it is, they printed new tech cards in the last set, and specifically actually not Hecklebot, because that one's far less consistent, but specifically Unseen Saboteur, because that one, your opponent, whenever they're playing Mechanical Warrior, they have to get to a specific set of cards in their hand, and if you Unseen Saboteur them, if you have removal, if it hits the boom ship, and then you can kill their Mechanoon, you win right there. And if you Unseen Saboteur and you hit a Whirlwind or the Inner Rage, if they're playing, I mean, I think that the only way to build it is with Malagos and Mechanoon. So Unseen Saboteur is a very good tech card against that, but I think it'll just be a case of whether or not people expect it enough in qualifiers to bring Unseen Saboteurs in their secondary or tertiary decks. So I think Mechanoon Warrior's in a good place right now, which is something I didn't expect myself to say pretty much ever about a Mechanoon deck. But I think the printing of Unseen Saboteur is a nice safety valve for Mechanoon, which is also a safety valve of other greedy decks.
For what it's worth, I think the better kill is Undertaker, Inner Rage, and Devastate, which has a backup option of Shield Slam and is very resilient against Unseen Saboteur. I think the Boom Ship kill is
Unless
super
you're
outdated.
frozen and you discover a Mecharoo.
Well, okay, that's why when you're playing the Mechanoon deck, you don't play Omega Assembly, and when you get the Discover Hero Power, you just do not touch the button. Because why would you want to give yourself a Death Rattle mech? Because you could just get screwed.
That was a funny game to watch. For
yes.
those of you who don't know what I'm referring to, is Frozen was playing the Undertaker Mechanoon build as his secondary or tertiary deck, and he discovered a Mecharoo and played it earlier on. So the Undertaker actually copied the Mecharoo Death Rattle, so he couldn't actually go off with the combo, because if he was to kill the Undertaker, the Mechanoon Death Rattle trigger would happen, and then he would still be left with a 1/1 mech on board from the Mecharoo. So it was a really silly way to end. I think it was game 2 versus Muzzy. I think it was.
Yeah, and sequence is random, so 50% of the time he would have won the game. It actually doesn't guarantee the trigger. I have my friend Nicotine Jones, who is a Magic deck building friend that I've had for multiple decades now, spent a lot of time iterating Undertaker Mechanoon, and the Death Rattles are random order, so good luck.
So, moving on from Elysiana and Rogue nerfs, we have buffs for the first time ever in Standard, because we had the buff whenever Molten Giant rotated out to Wild, but I don't really count that. And there's 2 for each class, so I'll just go through and read the 2 for each class, and then we'll talk about what we really think the potential impact of these are. And for Druid, first up, we have Gloop Sprayer, and it was 8 mana. This is the previous 8 mana 4/4 that summoned copies of adjacent minions, and now it's a 7 mana 4/4. And then the next card to get a buff is Mulch Muncher, which is the 10 mana 8/8 rush that costs 1 less whenever Treant dies. Now it's a 9 mana 8/8 with rush. So these are pretty simple changes, and we're going to see this kind of a theme here in all of these or most of the buffs, where they're just mana cost changes to push them a little bit more into playability. And I don't really see too much potential with Gloop Sprayer, but to be fair, I'm not that much of like a combo brewer, and I wouldn't have seen the Snip Snap interaction until that hit live servers. So maybe there's something here with a 7 mana Gloop Sprayer, but the
Juicy Psych Melon.
Yep. Yeah, you Psych Melon.
Loosen Bark.
Yep, the Gloop Sprayer, Loosened Bark, and then whatever 9-drop of choice, which is usually Alexstrasza.
Oh, there you go. Y'all found it already. You did it.
I didn't find it. I was listening to Blizzlet today, and they mentioned that
Okay.
it
I
Yes.
could see that.
Blizzlet,
So,
the Hearthstone
Psych
strategy
Melon-
podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, they mentioned that it makes it so your 8-drop slot is empty other than Loosen Bark, which is interesting. Means that on average, Juicy Psych Melon is going to draw you less cards, because it also shares with Ancient Watcher, the 7 mana 5/5?
Ancient Lore.
Ancient Allure. Yeah,
Yes.
it shares a slot with that now. But it guarantees that you get the Lucent Bark, which is the most important card in that deck, so good, I guess.
Yeah. So what all these all these buffs? I keep saying nerfs. It's force of habit. What all these buffs, these card changes to make them better on purpose? Thank you, Blizzard. Almost all of them are to buff archetypes that are not seeing any play right now, that are on the verge of playability. Very few of these cards slot into decks that are in current standard and just make them better. Almost all of them are for decks that are not seeing play at all, that are missing a key element. And almost all of them are buffs to value cards that are really good against Warrior. So in case you're wondering why they didn't nerf any Warrior cards, it kind of is nice that they buffed a bunch of cards that are good against Warrior and also nerfed Warrior's biggest target. I expect the Warrior class, despite the play patterns of Dr. Boom feeling not as inherently fun to play against as I was hoping, the class it has a lot of predators on the rise, and that probably is why they didn't adjust it outside of Elysiana. So, Gloop Sprayer and Mulch Muncher are for probably Lucent Bark Druid and Treant Token Druid, which are both currently seeing no play at all. None.
I've seen a lot of Druid.
Of
Have you not
Token
seen a lot
Druid,
of Token
but
Druid?
none of them are playing Dendrologists, and
Yeah, okay.
a lot of them are even
Yeah.
cutting Forest.
Right. Down to
So,
one at most.
It's funny that you say that, because that was actually the one Druid deck I've seen this past week was actually Looked and Bark Druid, and that was before we got on the podcast.
yeah,
I
and
made
Lucent
8/8
Bark.
and it died. You saw it.
Yeah, it wasn't good enough, and boys is saying in the chat, you can now play Lucent Bark, and on turn 10, you can go Healing Touch myself to bring back the Lucent Barks, and then play the Gloop Sprayer. And that's kind of cool. You couldn't do that before.
Yeah, and then you can also Witching Hour plus Gloop Sprayer, because it's a beast, right?
Lucent Bark is not a beast, I don't believe, but you can get back Witchwood Grizzly.
That's what it is.
Yep.
Yeah, you can get the Witchwood Grizzlies and copy it. I knew there was Witching Hour in a list a while ago.
I definitely got Witchwood Grizzlied recently. That was not fun. That was not fun. Because they doubled its health and then played it, and it didn't matter that I had almost a full hand because it was a 318.
Yeah, I played that earlier, and they made 316, and then I said, attack with these 2 8/8s, kill that, make some more 12 drops. Yeah, I mean, the Gloop Sprayer seems a little less straightforward, but the Mulch Muncher makes a lot of sense. Like, people were experimenting with the deck whenever Doomsday came out, and I mean, it had some potential there, but it was pretty much like left behind whenever people realized just ramping to UI and playing that style of Token Druid was way better. So maybe this gets a little bit better. I doubt that a mana cost from like 10 to 9. Hockey Boys actually says Mulch Muncher is a Conjuring Calling nerf as well, which is true, because if you hit the giant, you can't get an 8/8 with Rush anymore.
But now
But-
when you conjuring the Alex Strazas, you can.
There you go. But yeah, I doubt this buff from 10 to 9 is going to suddenly bring it into like tier 1 constructive viable, but maybe it gives it just a little bit of a buff to maybe bring it to like tier 4, like just something to play on ladder that doesn't lose most of its games, something that you can like actually battle to legend with, which I think is where they want a lot of decks, or yeah, a lot of decks that classes have access to. And it doesn't really feel like Token Druid has one, or Druid has one, except for specifically the Token Druid that exists right now. And then moving from Druid, we have the Hunter buffs. I keep wanting to say nerfs. It is a force of habit. War Mechanic is the 5 mana 3/6 that says your Death Rattles trigger twice, and now it is a 4 mana 3/6. And then the next buff is Flark's Boomzooka is moved to 7 mana from 8 mana. So I haven't played a lot with either of these cards. I had like theory crafted some stuff with Necromechanic whenever it was revealed, with whenever Death Rattle Hunter was really good, whenever you had Devilsaur Eggs and Katharina and Cube and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not really sure where this goes right now. And the same with Flark's Boomzooka. I'm not really sure where these go.
I think Necromechanic. I mean, we all have played Houndmaster Shaw before, and obviously that had a much different effect, a much different static effect. But you could put Necromechanic in a. I feel like you could put it in one of these mech decks that are kind of just playing. Obviously, Spider Bomb is really good with this card. If you need to clear a wider board, or the 4-mana 3/1 that death rattles into 3/1/1s is good. There's a lot of cards that are already in the Mech Hunter deck that you're pretty happy if you get to trigger them twice, and a 4-mana 3/6 is just a good statted minion. So I mean, I'm trying to think. We haven't had a lot of 4-mana 3/6s, but
Water Elemental.
Ironwood Water Elemental has seen fringe play for a while, and Ironwood Golem was always pretty
Oh,
good
Iron
to
Bark.
get.
Well, yeah, but you were tutoring it out.
Oh, Iron Bark, yeah.
Yeah.
But like the stat line is good. That one couldn't attack sometimes because you didn't have enough armor, and this it has like a benefit to it. So it feels kind of similar to a Water Elemental if you can make it work in your deck. Or if you have a lot of favorable interactions in your deck, it seems like a card I'm kind of interested in looking into.
Yeah, it feels like one of those lightning rod cards that you just play on curve and then put your opponent to the test of, do you have the removal? If not, I'm about to do something really stupid, which Houndmaster Shaw is kind of a good parallel. Does different things, but I mean, if we're thinking in context of having a bunch of death rattles in your deck and building your deck around it, then if your opponent can't kill it, then you get a lot of value, and then if they kill it, then you 1-for-1 your opponent with removal to make room for your later stuff. So I like these kind of cards, especially on like turns. I think like turns 4 through 5 are usually really good. Like turns 3 and above, I feel like cards like Hench Clan Thug or Mana Worm pre-nerf or like Grimscale Oracle, I feel like they put too much pressure on your opponent to answer them immediately, and they kind of overload the mana cost of removal that's run at the time. Whereas a 4-mana card like this, there's a lot of different 4-mana removal spells. There's like Hex, there's Polymorph. If you have a board already of some beasts, you have is it Mark Shot is the one that
Mark Shot
kills
deals
something?
4.
Yeah, deals 4 and discovers. So I think having it at 4 is like a good spot to be in. 5 felt a little bit too slow, but 4 I think will put your opponent to the test really well. Work as a nice lightning rod for any kind of deck this goes in.
The two things that I really like about it is that first you curve both Ursatron and Spider Bomb into this, and the second thing is that turn 7 Necromechanic 9 lives is much more doable than turn 8 Necromechanic 9 lives, and turn 6 is Mech Whelp. So you play Mechanical Whelp on turn 6, and then you trade, and then turn 7 you go Necromechanic 9 lives, and you get 2 7/7s, and that seems good.
Seems very good. Or you play a Mechanical Whelp, your opponent doesn't do anything to it because they can't deal with the 7/7 yet, so they just let you have the 2/2, and then you go Necromechanic Spider Bomb onto my Mechanical Whelp, and then trade, and then
Or you play the 2/1. I forget the
Fireworks
name of
Tech
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, Fireworks Technician. So I feel like there's a lot of applications here, which seem pretty good. I mean, I feel like the buff is reasonable. It doesn't feel like it's gonna be like overbearing, because, like I said, there's like on curve answers that a lot of classes have access to, and I mean, if you're not playing a control class with one of these answers, then you'll probably have minions on the board before this comes down, so you could probably trade into it reasonably efficiently and not worry about it too much. So I like the buff to this card. The Boomzooka one, I mean, I just don't know what you do with that in Hunter.
Yeah. I don't know what you do with that in any class. I am certain that somebody smarter than us will figure it out, and I bet with Necromechanic you can do some gross stuff, but I have no idea. Absolutely
Well,
not.
now you can do Boomzooka Revenge of the Wild a turn sooner. Because I think that's kind of what that combo was. That's why it was 8 and 2. So now you can do it a turn sooner. Maybe.
I maybe that was the plan. I don't know. I don't
I
know
just
what
don't know
the
what beasts you're getting out with it. That's my question. Is what
Savannah
beasts are you getting out?
Hyman.
Yeah, I guess maybe.
It's remember how that card was played until they printed Unleash the Beast, and now it's just like, why wouldn't I just want the card that's better now and with Zul'jin? Anyways, what about Mage? What we got?
So Mage, we have Unexpected Results, was a 4-mana spell that summoned 2/2-drops, and whenever you had spell power on the board, it upgraded the cost of the 2 minions. So if you had spell power +1, summon 2 3-drops. If you had spell power +2, summon 2 4-drops, etc. Now it's a 3-mana spell. And this is actually a card that I was pretty excited about whenever Boomsday got announced and all the spoilers came out, because it felt like one of those cards that Tempo Mage would be able to use. But it was just way too slow and not impactful. Like, if you were to play out a spell power minion like a Blood Mage Thalnos, it usually just died before you could play this on turn 4. Or if like a really good combo with this is that Celestial Emissary? Is it the 2-mana 2/1 Battlecry, get +2 spell power? That was just like turn 6, and then you were only getting 2 4-drops, which was fine, but it was still really slow, and you'd rather be doing something else a little bit faster in those kind of decks. So I'm not sure that the buff here to 3 mana is going to suddenly make it playable, but I'm definitely going to try it out, and I would imagine that it would be much closer to playable than 4 mana, because being able to pair a spell power minion with this on 5 is, I mean, I feel like it's a reasonably solid turn 5 combo, like 2-card combo, to just stick some stuff on the board and then either fight what your opponent has going on or pressure your opponent. So I'm excited to try this one out, but I'm not sure if this is going to suddenly make it playable. And
Turn
then
2, Spellzerker, and then you get it enraged or
wow.
whatever,
No,
and then you
Spellzerker
play
is
this on
pretty good.
turn 3, and you get 2 4-drops. That's a good turn.
It does seem like a pretty sweet curve. Yeah, Spellzerker is one of those minions that I just kind of forget exists until it just completely wrecks me in a game. So I'll probably try something out with that, like maybe Celestial Emissaries, Thalnos, and Spellzerker, and then just kind of try stuff from there. And then
Mana Worm.
the
Oh wait.
what?
Too soon.
I was gonna say you could curve Mana Worm into Spellzerker. Oh wait.
Yeah, and then the next buff we have is Luna's Pocket Galaxy. It was a 7-mana spell that reduced the cost of your minions in your deck to 1, and now it is a 5-mana spell with the same effect. So I think this one has one of the most obvious applications, I would say, out of the cards on this list, because whenever it came out, people immediately thought of OTK Mage with Archmage Antonidas and Sorcerer's Apprentice, and that's more of a wild thing now, but being able to do this on turn 5 as opposed to turn 7 is way better for that kind of deck. So I would be surprised if people didn't try out this in a Exodia Mage style deck in Wild. But for Standard, is there any way you can OTK people with Antonidas and Sorcerer's Apprentice? I don't think so.
I mean, you can just play this on turn 5, and then all of your giants that you draw for the rest of the game are free.
Yeah, I was
Also
gonna
that.
say this is just a buff to the Mana Cyclone Mage, because sometimes you get this randomly off Mana Cyclone and it sucks because it's 7 mana and it rots in your hand. But maybe you can squeeze in 5 mana or 3 mana. Both of these cards are easier to squeeze into your curve than before. So
Yeah. Well, and this is a big buff to Hexlord Malakras. I think that you can build a goofy mid-range mage that isn't necessarily even Cyclone-based with Luna's Pocket Galaxy. I don't think you're going to depend your deck on it. You're not going to base your deck on it. But there were people that were actually playing the card at 7. They were trying it out and playing it at 7. And I think the results were inconsistent there, but there was something to it. When we're looking into Astromancers and Powers of Creation and all these big effects, Caligos, there is some value to getting that mana reduction if you're going to use the rest of your mana. And I think we have mage decks now that are hungry enough they would spend 15, 20 mana a turn if they could. And if you're going to do that, that's where Luna's really shines. Where it sucks is if you're drawing a 1 mana minion that used to cost 8, and you're spending the rest of your mana going ping, pass, the mana discount didn't do anything. But we have mage decks that are looking to spend their mana, and I don't know if there's an OTK, but there might be something here. I could see it. Is Leyline Manipulator still standard legal? No, it's not, right?
No.
No.
But, I mean, 2 mana discount is a big discount. 2 mana is a lot more than 1 mana, especially when you're discounting a card, which we've never had happen before, except when you're, like, prepping stuff.
Yeah.
So...
Well, and speaking of discounts, why don't we talk about Paladin for a second here? Because I think the first Paladin card is going to be one of the strongest cards in Standard. And I'm curious what y'all think of that one.
Okay, so I'll say what the cards do, or do you want to say what they do first, Appa, since you've been doing that?
Yeah, sure. Crystology used to be the 2 mana spell that would draw 2 1-cost minions from your deck.
Power minions.
Yeah, 1 power minion, sorry. And now it's a 1 mana spell that does the same thing. So you can put this in Mech Paladin, and you can just go turn 1 Crystology into turn 2 Galvanizer pretty frequently, which is kind of a really good start to make more consistent, because Galvanizer is usually one of the best cards in that deck, to just be able to ramp you and do more things in a turn. Yeah, I mean, I think that's its most likely application is just you just shove this. I mean, you just keep it in Mech Paladin and it just gets better. Mech Paladin was already very close to being like really good because it preyed on Warrior and beat a lot of other stuff, but lost pretty hard to Rogue because Sap is disgusting. So not having to worry about as much Rogue anymore, coupled with this buff to Crystology, probably puts the deck. I'd be surprised if it wasn't like tier 1 playable in terms of like if you're playing it on ladder, or if you're playing on ladder, you should think about this deck. So, I mean, those are my thoughts on the card.
So Blister Guy recently played a deck that had both Crystology and Glowstone Technician, which is the other card that got buffed in it. And I played it for a bit. That deck is very good. As it is, it was very good. It definitely lost to Rogue, which is why it wasn't super popular, but it was very powerful. It drew a lot of cards and buffed up its minions very quickly. So the buff to Crystology and Glowstone Tech just means it's going to be able to do all that stuff a lot faster. I think that far and away, in my opinion, Paladin got the best buffs, and also Crystology is even better in the Holy Wrath deck. And that deck was already pretty good, and the fact that Crystology is now 1 mana, it makes your Wild Pyromancers better, and because you can trigger them quicker, and yeah, that deck was already good. Being able to have a turn 1 play more often or some amount of the time is good. It's just I like both of these buffs a lot. I think that it's going to be. I think Paladin's going to see a large uptick when these go live.
Yeah, Glowstone Tech, there were people that were trying it out, and the card's not bad, but 6 mana was so much mana. And Crystology. 1 mana Crystology is kind of crazy. 1 mana draw 2 cards is... And 1 mana draw 2 specific cards, this feels pretty pushed to me. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a point in Standard down the line where they say 1 mana is too cheap for this card. It guarantees Crystalsmith Kangor if you want it. It can get you Thalnos. It can get you... Some decks are playing Bloodsail Corsair, Elven Archer if you want it. It's a better survival tool. Just need to survive more, and that's the combo deck that I think is going to be the glue that holds Standard together. But 1 mana Crystology is a dangerous thing, because 1 mana draw 2 cards that I know what I'm gonna get. That effect's been dangerous before. So, this is a little bit less potent, because it's so specific to one attack minions, but I would expect to see a bunch of this. Glowstone Tech, I'm not sure about, but I expect to see some play, and hopefully that will enable both mech and mid-range paladins to be a little bit more functional.
Have you Glowstone Teched before? feels so gross the turn after. Like the turn after your glowstone tech, when your hand is filled with cards like Skaterbot and the what just
Bronze
the
Gatekeeper.
3 mana 1/6 gatekeepers, and that mech paladin deck actually has a lot of draw in it. It has
Plays
it
Prismatic
has
Lens, right?
obviously Prismatic Lens and Call to Adventure, which draws your 1 mana Gatorbots and Glowstone techs, and what's the other 1 mana card?
Glowtron.
The 1/3 Glowtrons. Yeah, your mechs start to get big really fast, and it's really hard to break through them if you survive. So the fact that this comes down a turn sooner and it comes down on the right turn, because all your card draw is turns 1 through 4, and so you draw up all your cards, and then turn 5 you drop this, and then you just put up a giant wall that people can't get through.
Yeah, it's that's Satellites list, right? Kibler was talking about that.
Kibler was talking a lot. I think he played this deck to Legend, actually. The Glowstone Tech and Crystology Mech Paladin.
Yeah, I heard very good things about it. I haven't played it, but I used to play Grime Street Enforcer, which was the 5 mana 4/4 that hand buffed your hand for 1 at the end of the turn. And this just does that twice right away. So I expect this card to see some play. And it's got some priest buffs too. I know you love priest buffs, Botticus. And I think that at least one of these is very relevant. Cloning Device. This is the one, the 2 mana card that says discover a minion from your opponent's deck. And that's 1 mana now. And then Extra Arms. 3 mana, give a minion +2/+2, and you get a basically a twin spell copy called More Arms that gives another +2/+2. Both copies cost 2 now. So you take Blessing of Kings and you chop it into 2 halves, and you give it to Priest. Extra Arms is a card. It's a real card. And if Priest had better 1-drops, I'd be all about it, but if you curve Cleric into Extra Arms...
Cleric?
Well,
Yeah.
Okay, you've got the one really good 1-drop, but you have to play other cards. So, I do think that Extra Arms is on the verge of bringing a deck and the class into more relevant playability. The Cloning Device I'm not as sure about. Typically, taking a card from your opponent's strategies has not been as relevant as we would have liked. Madame Lazul, for example, has seen basically no play. I don't know. I don't really see a ton of application for Cloning Device right now, other than being a 1-mana spell that draws you a card, which can be relevant, but Priest card draw spells all cost 0 right now. Extra Arms, I do think, has a lot going for it. What do you think, Appa?
Yeah, I actually played a good bit of Extra Arms pre-rotation, but granted, we also had Shadow Visions in the deck, and that was the deck that played Grave Horrors and Lyras, and it played Divine Spirit Interfire, so it's way less consistent because you don't have the multiple copies of whatever spell in your deck with Shadow Visions. But just the potential curve of Norshire into this is really solid. A 3/5 on turn 2 is pretty good. I mean, we've all played against Totem Golem. It's a little different, but but yeah, like snowballing a card like this definitely has potential, especially in the class that's probably dealt with minion buffs the best, because you have the ability to manage their health with Power Word Shield, your Hero Power, Divine Spirit, and Interfires. So I think this definitely has some stuff going for it, and maybe it just sees play in like a mid-range priest deck without the combo potential, just because it, like you said, it's a Blessing of Kings chopped in half.
All right, Hat, I figured it out. I know why Archivist Elysiana costs 9 now, so that when you're a warrior opponent who's on coin, go Elysiana, coin, Baleful Banker, my Elysiana, then you get to go Cloning Device, get your Elysiana back out of your deck, and then get to play your own. So when you're playing Control Priest, the highly popular and playable Control Priest deck, you can out fatigue the warrior with Cloning Device.
That's... So, the term for cards like this, as we've talked about before, are safety valves. And that is a very weird one. It is not the one that I was expecting. But yes, It does allow you to counter your opponent's Elysiana that they got shuffled back in their deck 50% of the time if you want to play Fatigue Priest. I would recommend doing something else.
Is that 50% of the time?
Well, if they don't get the coin, they can't do it, right?
Well, I mean, they shuffled 10 other minions in their deck. Or, not
Oh.
specifically minions, but
Yeah.
a lot of the time they put minions in there too.
So like 50% of 50%. I don't know. I wouldn't do this. I'm not interested in figuring out the math. That's a suboptimal strategy.
It's only 5 different minions, Appa. Because it's 2 copies of each minion.
Well, they
and
could
you
get
can't discover
spells.
the same minion twice.
They could get spells.
So maximum 5 different minions. All right,
Yeah.
let's go to the next card. I was memeing. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to halt the whole section of this with my meme. I'm sorry. I'll just talk about this next section because it's Rogue.
Oh yeah.
And we all love Rogue.
And there's some cards here.
And yeah, so Pogo Hopper used to be 2 mana, will now be 1 mana, which is big. 2 mana to 1 mana is a big buff. And then Violet Haze was 3 mana, is now 2 mana. That was the spell that draws 2 random Death Rattle, or adds 2 Death Rattle minions to your hand. Adds 2 random Death Rattle minions to your hand. So, yeah, the big one is Pogo Hopper. That card never really saw the light of day, but at 1 mana, it's kind of changing my mind on what's possible. And I know everybody's heard me talk about Magic Carpet Rogue, but if you're putting a bunch of Pogo Hoppers in your deck, then you could Magic Carpet and then play a Pogo Hopper and give it Rush and really control the board really well. So maybe? I don't know. It's definitely in the discussion, especially when you have Hand Rogue, which is really good at drawing through its deck quickly. Being able to get to the Pogo Hoppers could be a thing you could do.
This is a thing. Saying it right now. This is a thing. You can curve Pogo Hopper into Lab Recruiter. You can go turn 3 Pogo Hopper Lab Recruiter. You can play Witchwood Piper and go get your Pogo Rogos. You can do a lot of things. We're already playing Spirit of the Shark. 1 mana is so much less than 2 mana. It's not 1 less, it's half as much. Very important. The amount of turns where you can just weave in a 1 mana thing are so many, and if you just get a couple of these going, it gets gross really, really fast. Really, really fast. So I think there's something there.
Also, being able to put a Ziliax on it, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
If you really feel like the deck needs to be defensive, you can also put the 1/6 on this, taunt it up real good. Just having that all be able to happen turns sooner is very strong.
And
then
we're
being
already
able
playing.
to deploy.
We're playing Togwaggle scheme already. We're doing that in Rogue currently. That's a thing.
Mhm.
So you can just scheme your bunnies. It's the deck gets a late game package that doesn't depend on chaining Togwaggles with the Togwaggle treasure, and you couldn't really do that as effectively anymore either because prep got nerfed. But now you just get to play a controlling dirtily rogue strategy that isn't completely dead to anything aggressive. Just being able to tempo out a Pogo on 1 is fine, and there's a lot of opportunity to just make the mid to late game so much better.
Yeah, and Violet Haze, I don't think is it adds 2 random cards that you don't know their deterministic
Yeah,
value.
I
but
mean, they're
now you
death
can prep it.
rattles.
Hey, they nerfed prep, but they had to keep the Violet Haze in line with it, so you can still prep Violet Haze.
Yeah, and death rattles they're not guaranteed to be good, but they're guaranteed to get some kind of value after they die. So, getting some kind of value is good. I don't know. This pushes a different kind of deck that I agree that Violet Haze was probably not the card that was keeping Death Rattle Rogue from working, but it's nice that you can curve this into a Necrium Blade. I don't know. I don't see anything coming from this, but that doesn't mean that it's better when it's randomly generated now. So
Yeah, every once in a while when you get it off of the lackey, or when you take it off the lackey because your other 2 options are not good for the situation you're in, it'll be a little bit better, and that's good.
Speaking of randomly generated.
All right, so Shaman is the next class, and
I got it.
Stormbringer.
I got
All right.
enough. I got enough voice left
All
to
right,
talk
let's
about
do it.
Shaman.
We
So-
have to have you talk about it.
So for Shaman, we got Stormbringer, which was the 7-mana legendary spell that transformed your board into random legendaries, and now it costs 6 mana. And I'm excited about this one because it saw some very fringe play whenever it first came out in sort of value-based, board-centric Shaman decks, but it was quickly cut from lists, mostly because that style of play wasn't good enough at the time when you're battling against decks like Malagos Druid or Togwaggle Druid with like UIs and stuff like that. But it had something there, and I think I would honestly be surprised if this card doesn't see play for at least the first few days whenever it comes out, because the best ways to build Shaman right now, you either build Control with like Shutterwalk and a top end like that, or you build a Murloc. Then there's two realistic ways to build Murloc Shaman. One is the value build with cards like Shutterwalk. Sometimes they run Hagatha, and then like Giggling Inventors, like we talked about a little bit earlier. And then there's a more popular way to build it right now, which is just curve up to 4, where with what's the name of the card? The amalgam thing. I'm blanking.
HenchClan Hag.
Yeah, sometimes the list play HenchClan Hag, and then those kind of decks are pretty all in on Bloodlust a lot of the time. Like you can fight a long game with Underbelly Angler sometimes, but usually you're a pretty straightforward like one-track deck. Just flood the board and Bloodlust them. And the Stormbringer at 6 mana, I think functions pretty well in that style of deck when you don't draw one of your 2 Bloodlusts, or if you're playing against, say, a deck, I don't know, like a grindy deck where a Bloodlust isn't enough to kill them at that time, but maybe you want to just upgrade your dorky, stupid Murlocs into legendaries. And I think this works pretty well in that sort of all-in Murloc shell, because usually curve like 1 of the 2 into 3-drop, and then turns 4 and 5 are either HenchClan Hag if you have them, or play double 2-drops on 4. And frequently with the deck, I found my turn 5 being usually, if I'm playing a deck against a deck without a lot of early removal, I'll play out an Underbelly Angler, but if they do have a lot of early removal, I'll save it until the turn where I know I can get value out of it, which is usually like turn 5 or 6 when you play that, like a 1-drop, and sometimes you get more 1-drops off that. So being able to have this kind of play pattern into a turn 6 Stormbringer, I think actually might just be good enough for the Murloc Shaman deck as just a different way to fight against greedy control decks if your Bloodlust isn't enough, or as a third copy of a big board buff effect. And I don't think 3 would be too much, because like we've seen from Token Druid, they run the Power of the Wilds, they run Sage Roar, and they run the 3-mana Echo one. I forget the name of it, but they load up pretty hard on like board buff mechanics, and I think this could function in a similar way. And I think the buff from 7 to 6 is actually sort of significant for that style of play. So I would expect that to see a little bit of play in all-in Murloc Shaman like board flood decks, at least for the first few days, maybe even the first week or so it comes out, if it's not like determined to be playable after.
I think it's a buff to getting it off of Hagatha, because you can do more stuff now, which is good.
And you can curve this card into 7-mana Hagatha. It's just the 6-mana slot in the Shaman deck never really had much. Game of Thrones? Or, no, not Game of Thrones. Reign of Toads? Where did I get Game of Thrones from? Good lord. Reign of Toads?
Game of Toads.
Yes, Game of Toads. Reign of Toads was the 6-mana card that you played, I guess. But now you get to play Stormbringer. It's fine. It is probably not going to bring the deck out of obscurity. But this next card, Thunderhead, from 4-mana 3/5 to 4-mana 3/6, now that's a card. Because before, the lineup was always, well, they have to play Thunderhead and Zap in the same turn. Not anymore. And you'll notice the proliferation of 4-mana 3/6s. Blizzard is intent on making Dinomatic no longer the defining card of the format. Because before, it was, what can I play that survives Dinomatic? Well, you know what does now? Necromechanic and Thunderhead. And you can play Thunderhead on an empty board on turn 4. And then they can play Dinomatic, and then your Thunderhead is alive at the end of it. And that's better than it being dead.
Yeah, we, on the episode where we talked about brewing our own decks, I think that was 2 episodes ago, am I right?
I think so. Sounds plausible.
We talked about 5 toughness or 5 health as an important breakpoint in the format, as of specifically cards like Waggle Pick, Mark Shot, like True Silver Champion, these kind of things. And I didn't even actually think about this until Hat just said it, but having a minion be 6 toughness or 6 health against Dynamatic specifically is really, really powerful. And I mean, I've talked about this card enough on the podcast. I don't think I need to have another Thunderhead aside, but this card was already very strong. It's just that the deck that it went in was only kind of fringe playable, and now that Rogue is gone, which was one of its not good matchups, or not completely gone, but I'm sure we'll see less of it. Now that we're going to see less of Rogue, I would expect for Shaman to just get better, and then the buff to Thunderhead is just a little extra, just icing on the cake.
Botticus, anything you want to get to before we talk about Dr. Morgan? Because we can talk about Dr. Morgan for a while.
No, Shaman's better.
Yes.
I like Shaman. Yay.
Yes. Buffed cards make classes better. News at 11. Let's talk about Warlock. So, first of all, there's Spirit Bomb. There's a 2-mana, deal 4 to a minion, and you take 4. And now it costs 1. And it's still probably bad. Because Soulfire goes face, and this doesn't go face. So to play this, you need to be a Warlock deck that wants to kill minions that also doesn't care about your life total. And that's not a deck. Warlock already doesn't really have a deck. It has Zoo. And if Zoo wants to remove a minion, it plays Soulfire. Because their hand is already empty, so the card has no drawback. And also can go face. And they don't play Soulfire right now. So I don't envision Spirit Bomb seeing any play because of this. It's cool. If Warlock needed really efficient removal and didn't care about the life total and didn't want to go face, then sure, but I think that last part is a really, really big deal. Objections?
If this didn't see play in even Warlock, where you were frequently wanting for ways to upgrade your spellstones, I doubt it's going to see play now.
Yeah, and that was a Hench Clan Thug format, where that deck lost specifically to Hench Clan Thug, and even then it didn't want to play Spirit Bomb, which specifically says, kill target Hench Clan Thug and life tap, and they were like, nope, that's too much life. Not going to do it. So
Yeah, 4 damage is 2 more life taps that you could do, which would probably find you a better answer than this.
yes. So I think, unfortunately, at 1 mana, it is still probably not good enough, because to not be able to go face with this really sucks. But Dr. Morgan, oh boy, is this a buff. So Dr. Morgan, you may not know this card. You probably don't. It's an 8-mana 5/5 that when it dies, it swaps itself with a card in your deck, with a minion in your deck. It costs 6 now. 6-mana 5/5, which is an acceptable stat line, the same as Sylvanas, except when it dies, it doesn't die, it just goes to get another minion. That's something. And I don't know what we do with this, if we do anything in particular, but it is just a threat that doesn't really go away. It's like a cairn, but it's slightly bigger, and it gets something that you want, and you can just fill your deck with large, gross minions, or it can just be a value card. And then the next time you draw it, you play it again, and it keeps going. Keeps doing that thing. I don't know. I think there's something here. I think this is a mid-range Warlock, like, reasonable threat that creates a sticky board.
Interesting. The only application I could really think of was that Warlock deck that was just trying to play with Plot Twist and stuff like that. And this seems like a card you could include in a plot twist deck that you didn't before because it was 8 mana and playing it was not possible. But now you could just play it out for 6 mana. The biggest issue for a deck like that is going to be staying alive early. And if Warlock has the tools to stay alive early and also gain its life back, which without the
Spellstone.
without Spellstone, it's pretty hard to do. But who knows? 2 mana buff, like I said, 2 mana is a lot of mana on any card. So definitely possible that this even could create a Warlock archetype I'm not used to.
25% mana reduction is big enough to take notice, and we don't have mid-range Warlock decks currently, but this curves nicely into Omega Agent if you're really trying to stay alive. It's probably not what the format is looking for, but it might be. I don't know. I think there's something here. As far as the warrior buffs, well,
All right.
these...
I'll just say, because we did it for every class real quick. Security Rover is going from a 2/6, or going up to a 2/6 from a 2/5. Beryllium Nullifier is going to a 4/8 from 3/8. And I didn't actually notice this until Hat mentioned it earlier, that all of these cards are from Boomsday, and I should have realized that. But I took a look at the Boomsday cards for Warrior, and I'll list them off real quick. You have Rocket Boots, and then Weapons Project, Dynomatic, Security Rover, Boom Ship, Eternium Rover, Omega Assembly, Dr. Boom, Super Collider, Beryllium Nullifier. Now, you want to pick 2 cards that you want to buff, or you want to give buffs to in that list. You pretty much have Beryllium Nullifier, Rocket Boots, and Security Rover are the only 3 that you would even consider touching, because all of the other cards see a very large amount of play, except for kind of Boom Ship, but doesn't seem like a card.
Please don't make that card cost 8. Please don't do that. Please no.
So yeah, I think they just tried to do minimal buffs to cards that are not currently seeing a lot of play, and that's what they did with these 2 cards.
Yeah, these are going to be more annoying when you discover them off Dr. Boom, but Dr. Boom is the real thing there. I could see, in some world, putting a Beryllium Nullifier in my deck, but probably not. Most likely not, but I could see it. I don't know. It's really annoying, but I think this will just make Discovery Drone a lot better off of Dr. Boom, the hero power that gets you a mech. And otherwise, yeah, these are incidental nerfs. They also are... These are the cards you would build if you were building a mech warrior and not a control warrior. You would use these cards and just kind of curve out with really annoying stuff that doesn't die. So for Magnetic Warrior, Mech Warrior, these are cards that allow that archetype to be explored a little bit, along with the neutral legendary, which we'll talk about next. But otherwise, these are cards that are not only not seeing play, but likely not at the risk of seeing play. So I think I agree. These are the safest possible buffs that you can make to keep the class equally situated without shoving anything further. Because what are you going to do? Put Dynomatic to 4? Please don't do that. Please don't do that.
Yeah. What are you going to make Super Collider a 2/3?
Ugh. Actually, that would make it worse sometimes. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Because you would kill 3/2s, and they couldn't bump into anything.
But I'm a little upset because Security Rover is a card that I just hate whenever they discover it, because it is so annoying. And now it's going to be just slightly more annoying, and I don't like it.
Yeah. And then the last card we have, not buffed, but introduced for free, if you log in, gotta log in, very important, is Snip Snap. It is a 3-mana 2/3 mech magnetic echo. Echo. You can cast it multiple times. And yes, it says echo, and no, it's not inconsistent, because the Blizzard dev says any cards that have echo should rotate out with the Witchwood, and this one does, so it's not inconsistent. Snip Snap, 3-mana, 2/3 mech magnetic echo, death rattle summon 2/1/1 and microbots. So if you echo it, you get multiple copies. You can magnetize all of them. It gets 2/1/1 microbots for each time that you magnetize it. And if you play Reckless Experimenter, then they cost 1 to magnetize additional copies. And I don't know where this card goes, but it seems pretty efficient on rate, and I think allows a lot of mech-based synergies to exist in classes that didn't have them before. Paladin, oddly enough, I think you don't play it because Kangors get so much worse from the 1/1 microbots. But I bet that Bomb Hunter absolutely plays this. I think that Mech Priest and various Druid builds get much better with this card because Druid is already playing Explodinator and Microtech Controller. You definitely want this card. And I bet there's some options out there that we haven't seen yet in other classes that are not as mechy that will definitely want this card. What do you guys think?
Yeah, you said all of the things that I was going to say. Definitely going straight into Bomb Hunter or any sort of mech hunter because it doesn't care about. I guess if you were like a 9 lives hunter, maybe you don't include it. But even then, it's just so like the stats for what you're getting just seem very worth it. So I think you probably still include it in mech hunter, any version of mech hunter.
Yeah, and I think Token Druid really benefits from this in a lot of ways. You can play Joey Bot and Explodinator and a lot of other cards and really make it powerful. I think there's opportunity for mechs in other classes that we probably just haven't paid attention to because I have no idea what mechs Shaman has. I don't know if it has any mechs. I don't know what mechs Warlock has, but you can just play this in Zoo if you want. Like, it's fine. The Echo part goes such a long way. Because when you top deck at late game, it's just if you were to play this in Zoo on turn 6, 2/2/3s that get you 4/1/1s, sure, or a 4/6, sure, that's good enough. That's great. And if this gets Ziliax, the 1/1 microbots trade right back into Ziliax. It's kind of nice. I don't know. What do you think, Op? Are you putting this in Token Shaman?
Yes. I might even try it in Murloc Shaman, because a lot of the different builds that I have run some combination of Nightmare Amalgam and I already forgot the name, the 4-3/3 summons 1/1 amalgams. Makes
Hench Clan
Murlocs
Hag.
effects.
Hag.
Yeah, Hench Clan Hag. So just this either just being a value card to help refill the board, or just a little bit of extra like mid-game pushing power seems pretty good in a lot of like board-centric shaman decks. So yeah, seems good. I'm glad they're introducing new stuff. It's really cool.
So, to close out the section, on June 3rd, the date that these buffs go live, Appa, what's the first deck you're playing? Token Shaman?
You caught me off guard. Honestly, probably Murloc Shaman first, just with the Stormbringer added, and then Token Shaman, and then probably some weird unexpected results Mage Brew in that order.
Botticus?
Are we playing the same deck, Hat? I think we're playing the same deck.
Okay, well, are you starting with Pogo Carpet, or is that...
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I already have the cards that I'm cutting from my... I already know exactly what cards I'm cutting from my hand rogue, and it just kind of slots in perfectly, so... yeah, I expect to play Pogo Rogue, and then definitely also some Mech Paladin shortly after.
Yeah, I definitely want to try those two decks. I think my first deck might be Necromechanic Hunter. And I definitely want to try both Paladin cards. Crystology, I think, will get pretty boring pretty fast because you're just going to win a bunch of games when you play that card. Glowstone Tech, I think, sounds really interesting. And I really want to try something with extra arms. I think my first deck is going to be a Necromechanic deck, but I really want to try something with extra arms because half of a Blessing of Kings twice seems legit.
Do you think you put it in Silence Priest? Is that...
I think I put
Could
it
it
in
go
every
into that?
priest that's not Nomi Priest.
Yeah.
And
It's
maybe
interesting. I
not
don't know
Res
where it
Priest.
goes.
I don't know.
Yeah, not that one.
But if that deck still wins with Topsy Turvy and Divine Spirit and whatever, if you're already buffing your creatures, if you're buffing cards, this is the best way to do that. So I'd want to do this. I don't know. I want to mess with it. I wish there were more good 1-drops in Priest. But can't win them all. I wish we still had
Just
Cabal
play-
Talon Priest.
Just play Argent Squire and get him.
I'm not above that. But I would rather play Crystallizer, actually.
Why not both?
Because then you'd have 6 1-drops in your Priest deck. Okay. Maybe I'll play Mecharoo and Snip-Snap.
Can we
I don't know.
play? Can we play Christology in this priest deck too?
No, that's it.
No.
No.
Damn.
I think this
That'd
is
be really
probably a good time to wind up the outro.
How long can this go on?
We have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at coinconcede.com, where you can also find our contact info, show notes, and Patreon information. You can support our show at patreon.com/coinconcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch, twitch.tv/coinconcedepodcast. Join our community chats in our Discord, discord.coinconcede.com. Right into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coinconcede. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coinconcede. If you like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Variatus, Ryan Donald, Pug Ugly, and Doge TK. Coin Concedes. Hit me, Yappa. What you got?
So, I just want to coin concede to the balance team, not only for the nerfs, but also for the random buffs that they snuck us with, and also for just taking the L on Snip Snap before it can break the ladder. Because I don't blame them for missing that. I think with a limited number of people testing, I think it's relatively easy to miss that, and I'm glad they just decided to just change it before it hit ladder. So big props to them.
Botticus.
I would like to coin concede firstly to Hat for joining me this last week. I had a lot of fun doing the co-op with you. Also like to coin concede to Appa for a sweet mono red deck that he gave me that I've been playing a little too much of. And also, I'm going to coin concede to somebody who I don't believe listens to the show, but I know him from my WoW streaming I've been doing. He goes by Dooryard, and he made me he made me an emote because I have enough subs to have a second emote, which I'm really excited about. So I'm really excited to get this new emote approved and show all of you because it's sweet.
And I would like to coin concede to, well, Edelweiss and her wife Rachel, because I met them in New York City this week, and they're great. And Edelweiss's wife is shorter than me, which is a rare thing. I know, I promise it's true.
Aggressive.
A rare thing she's very pleasant and very small, and that's great. And Alice and I went to the Uncommons Board Game Cafe and jammed some Challenger decks, and that was super fun. So props. It was exactly as great as I would have expected. And coin concede to BR. He is one of our patrons. We had a coaching session before the show. We played exactly one game, where our opponent was Mechathune Warrior, and we were Bomb Warrior with Azalina. And we ended the game by fatiguing to 1, and then hitting our opponent for exactly 11, so they fatigued to 0 after 45 minutes. And afterwards, we sat for a while and said, what the crap? So, replay is in the Discord if anyone wants to go watch it. It is something, because our opponent did have to play their Mechathune to trade, so then we could play our Mechathune as a 10-10 with Rush. And we did things including, but not limited to, activate our Microbot hero power and then Brawl, so our opponent cannot play their Brawl, because we knew they had it, because we played Azalina. It was something. It was really something. So, yeah, Warrior Mirrors can be fun sometimes, but I don't like watching them, but playing them, very stressful. So, props to BR for making a great game, and being a good dude. And that's our show. So, keep calm and game the toads. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Toad concede.
Take cold comfort in your victory. You win. I can rest now. You win. For now. Now, your victory proves nothing.
The day is yours.
I choose death. You have triumphed. This time, this hunt is yours.